Okay, my name is Jen. I am 43 years old. I born and raised in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, in the outlying areas, and I burned my house down high on bath salts. I never fit in. I was the country bumpkin that was up on the hill while everybody else was down in town hanging out, and so I hung out where I fit in, and it just so happened that the people I fit in with were not the best type of people to be around as a teenager. So, I started smoking weed when I think I was like 12, started drinking it in the woods at keg parties and just, doing things that come with that territory. And, it was never, I ended up going to nursing school. I was a registered nurse. I have four beautiful children. I was married I was married at 18. I had my daughter at 18, and that marriage didn't last long. It was abusive. And then I met my second husband, and I had three beautiful little boys with him, but same, more of the same. He was, had his own struggles and his own addictions, and yeah, it ended up ending badly as well. But so I guess the major part of the addiction started when I was 14. I was in a car accident with my sister, and I hurt some ligaments in my neck, and went to the doctors. They started me on Percocets, and it was pretty much 2 to 4 hours. I could take 5 to 10 milligrams of Percocet, and this was in 1994. Yeah, and so back then the opiates weren't a big thing. Nobody ever told us that they were. There was a chance that I could become addicted, and in fact, 3 months later, when I was addicted, they sent me to a psychologist when the doctor stopped prescribing the meds because it was all in my head, he said. And so yeah, through the abuse of the husbands and everything, and it just was a recurring theme in my life that it was all in my head. Everybody just wanted to tell me how much that, if I could just pull myself together and pick myself up on my bootstraps, that, I could be much better. But unfortunately, it doesn't work like that, at least not for me. And so I progressively got worse. I mean, I was able to get off the opiates when I had my children, but it wasn't long after each pregnancy that I turned to the drinking, and my drug of choice was actually my drug of choice is the stimulants, any kind of stimulant. But yeah, once the opiates started getting big again, or yeah, it was in the like later 90s, earlier 2000s. It was just something to numb the pain. And so yeah, eventually then it turned from, the coke and stuff like that to bath salts. And I lived in the rural towns of Cambria County, and it was kind of taking hold. That would have been like 2010. Well, I think I started using like 2011 the bath salts. And just a little bit about the bath salts is it's pretty much like a legal form of meth, crystal meth. And so we could buy it on the internet and have it shipped to us from China, as many grams as you wanted. And yeah, we could, it was all perfectly legal. And so, yeah, that stuff takes hold fast, and there's no really, you know, survive or no, what's the word I'm looking for? Being functional. There's no being functional. Like you can be a functional opiate addict to some extent, but there's no functionality on the bath salts. So yeah, it took hold, and it took hold fast. And by April of 2012, I burned my house down high on bath salts. I had a psychotic break. And yeah, dumped some gas on some clothes, lit it with a torch, went across the road, called the police, called 911, and told them that my house was on fire. And at first nobody believed me, but they did come, and I mean, according to the stuff that come out afterwards, a lot of it I am blocking, I think. But um yeah, they according to them, I told them that I just wanted help, that I just wanted help. So, they took me and put me in the psych ward for a couple of days and let me out. And, there was the trial and stuff of, they arrested me for arson. But I think the trial went on for like 4 years. Well, I went to jail in 2015 for it. So it actually went on for 3 years. And in those 3 years, I just kept using the bath salts. And, it got really bad. My ex-husband got, I kind of gave custody of my children, even my daughter that didn't even belong to him. I just gave them to him because it was better than living with me. I knew I was on a slippery slope down, and I didn't want to take my kids with me as much as I could, I guess. And, in the midst of this, I was dating a guy by the name of Todd, and we used together. And, we kind of went downhill together. And then, went to rehab a couple of times for the bath salts. And, well, I went to rehab once and stayed 10 days, and that didn't do anything. Kept on using. And then in 2015, I went to jail for 4 months. And, yeah, that was hard because I was clean when I went in. The only thing I was on was the Suboxone. I started taking the Suboxone in 2013. So, and I met Denny, my counselor, and yeah, through the Suboxone, I mean, admittedly, I wasn't doing it right at first. It took me until my second time at rehab in 2016, October 29th, or yeah, I entered October 28th of 2016. For that time, I went in for I was using like Ritalin and amphetamines, and I was putting it in needles, and just horrible. I was just horrible. And so, yeah, I could see what it was doing to my kids and my family. And, me and Todd was starting to trying to get clean, and I could see that, it wasn't going to work between us if we were using. And so I did go into rehab, and I finished. I was successfully completed a program in 30 days, come out, and I went to, like the partial hospitalization program, where I went 5 days a week. 4 days I went to groups for like 4 or 5 hours a day. And then I had 2 1-hour counseling sessions with a drug and alcohol counselor. And, getting sober took a whole lot of accountability for what I had done to my children and all the people around me. But, my family, they are Christian, and, I had that faith from the time that I was a child. My mother taught me that. I should say also that my father was an alcoholic growing up. So, yeah, I was the youngest child and a child of an alcoholic. So all the statistics that go along with that kind of stuff were very true for me, and so that was hard. But um, yeah, since then, me and Todd both have gotten clean from opiates and bath salts. At the current time, we both use Suboxone to get, stop the cravings. It has the blocker in it that stops us even wanting to get high, or even allowing us to get high, and lots of people have things to say about Suboxone, but I'm clean and I'm successful, and I work as a recovery specialist, and I help other people that did the things that I did, find recovery and maintain it. I work with mental health also, and I'm not sticking needles in my neck anymore. So I dare somebody to tell me that I'm not clean, Suboxone or no Suboxone. And then I got clean in October, like I said, October 28th of 2016, and I was only clean for 3 months when my best friend's son died from drugs. It wasn't an overdose, but it was drug related. And then I think it was maybe 4 months later, my niece passed away in a motorcycle accident. She was 30 and left behind three little babies. And from there, my dad, my grandmother, two cousins, my best friend's other son passed away. So she lost both of her boys. And altogether, there was 8 people, with the last one being my own son, last August 4th. He passed away in a motorcycle accident. So that was a major hurdle that, I had dealt with all this death as much as I could in my recovery. But when Corey died, yeah, that's where my recovery became real. My faith became real because it was real life now. This was happening. And yeah, me and Todd just kind of dug our heels in, and it's not easy. We still have a whole bunch of stuff between us that we go to see Denny for once a week and talk it out. And I just think that the Suboxone is amazing because it gave me a chance at life again. So I don't abuse it. I'm not gonna say I never did in the beginning. There is that potential to use it wrong if you use it wrong, but if you're using it the way that it should be using, and it works. It absolutely works. When I can't control my own cravings, it controls the cravings for me. And actually 2 months ago, and I've been on Suboxone since 2013, and so has Todd. And 2 months ago, we decided to start decreasing. So it's not been easy. It's been about 3 months since the first decrease, and it took a while to level out. But I have nothing but high hopes for the rest of our recovery and the rest of our lives. Yeah, like I said, I never really fit in with anybody. I didn't have a lot of friends. I just was different than the girls my age. Nobody wanted to hang out and write stories and hang out in the woods. They wanted to be around the boys and all that kind of stuff. And I didn't want that. I've always been a loner, pretty much an introvert. And yeah, but it doesn't take long before you realize that it's not fun to be alone all the time. And so you kind of have to be willing to give up some of yourself for relationship with other people. And I kind of touched on my issues with men growing up. My dad was an alcoholic, so I can honestly only remember him saying I love you one time. And he wasn't physically abusive ever, really, but the emotional abuse was real. And I watched my mom handle that, but she couldn't give us a whole lot of emotion and love because she was barely surviving herself in dealing with my father. She came from a traditional Christian background, so in her mind, she couldn't divorce him. And yeah, I mean, I laid nothing on my mother at all. And so, yeah, more of the same, like I said, with my addiction, or with my marriages, I'm sorry. And so slowly I started realizing that it didn't hurt as bad when I was drunk, or it didn't hurt as bad when I was high, or people liked me a lot more when I was drinking and fun loving than when I was sober and the loner in the woods. And again, like I said, I gave more of myself than I should have, but hindsight's 2020, I guess. So, yeah. Yeah, so it's like 2019, I guess. I got the opportunity to go to peer support specialist training, which is like a 2-week training, and that was for the mental health side of it. And started supporting people in my community that had mental health struggles. I had been labeled a lot over the years by the psychiatrist, medicated, and all that stuff. They labeled me as bipolar because of the stimulants, but really, it was depression and anxiety is what I really struggled with. Anxiety especially. So yeah, through doing that, then I realized that it helps my own recovery because, like, honestly, in the beginning,
I just kept thinking to myself, I'm getting paid to do this. Like they are paying me to be well, to find ways to be well so that I can help other people be well. And, after the struggles that I'd had, like I said, I was a registered nurse at one point, worked at Torrance State Hospital. Like I did the mental health stuff. I knew that stuff. But, it came a point where I gave my nursing license up voluntarily. So, when I got this job, I was like, wow, you know, it was just crazy to me. But, I went to work for a very good company and they eventually offered me to go, they paid for the training for me to be a recovery specialist too. And, that's a little more challenging than just the mental health, but there's so much crossover between addiction and mental health that honestly, even in the peer support part of it, which was mental health, I came in contact with the addiction also. But yeah, I mean, I feel like it keeps me on my toes. It keeps me always remembering where I came from. It helps me to face my own judgments about myself and the things that I've done because I can see these things in other people and how they struggle, and I'm certainly not going to judge them. And so it kind of helps me stop judging myself too for the things that I did in the past because as a mother who, now had a son that died, I can really hit shame and guilt on the things that I did in my past. But, I work my program through my faith in God. And, it feels wonderful even in the NA program. The 12 step is giving back, so no matter which program you choose to work, it works when you work it, and now I get to work it every day with people that struggle. And like I said, it keeps me on my toes and it keeps me always looking for ways to help them, which in turn helps myself. Yeah, yeah. What I would say to somebody that is has experienced those same struggles is I know it's so very hard to be vulnerable and say, I have a problem, but as soon as you can admit it to yourself and another person, there's people out there that will help. There's people out there that have lived this life, that, spent many years in school studying this stuff. Like when we come in contact with the general public and there's the ignorance of not knowing what addiction is and the fear of people who suffer from mental health and addiction, like there's more to it. There's so much more to it than those people. You just gotta find your people, find the people that do want to listen. And I feel like through this whole thing with the opiate crisis and through COVID, even mental health has became a little more mainstream. Like there's numbers out there, there's people out there, there's NA and AA and just so many programs, and it just takes a little bit of vulnerability to say, hey, I'm struggling and I need some help.